بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونستهديه ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا فمن يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله ثم ما بعد السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. It's a great honor and a great privilege, as always, to spend Tuesday evenings in such good company, in such a noble pursuit, studying that knowledge that is always relevant to us. Imam Malik radiallahu anh was once questioned concerning the best thing to study. What's the best thing to learn? And he responded, the best thing to study is the knowledge that gets you from one end of the day to the other. That all of the kind of meretricious details of knowledge, this and that, all of those things have their place, but studying that which is essential, that which is the core of your relationship with Allah is certainly much more important. So, mashallah, we have classes that are dedicated to learning the Arabic language. We have classes that are dedicated to learning the Sharia, learning the halal and the haram. We have classes that are, dedicated to, learning how to recite the Quran. All of those things are important. But when you talk about a session or class particularly dedicated to helping us to change our hearts, to change our states, and to put all of those other things into practice sincerely, this is what we're attempting to do here. So mashallah, we did this class once before, and I feel like I've exhausted all of my stories, all of my references. And when Ali Dia, the executive director of Ta'leef, asked me to do it again, I told him I would only do it a second time on, under one condition, that each week I could converse with a different person, bringing different perspectives, different experiences, different ideas into the room. And I would be interested in the synergy that came out of my conversation with another person. Mashallah, I've had the privilege of conversing with some amazing people. This is the first family member of somebody that I had a chance to talk with. Gemali's father, Imam Ibrahim, was on with us about 3 weeks ago, and we had a really good conversation, mashallah. Mashallah. But today, we have in the building Gemali Ibrahim, mashallah, somebody that I feel honored to call a friend. Works right now in outreach at the Inner City Muslim Action Network, born into a really honorable and reputable Muslim family, and just brings a wealth of experience, man. How you feel, man?
Alhamdulillah. It's a blessing to be here, and Allah reward us for the best of our intention, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah. This is a poem originally, and Imam Maulud takes different topics, different subjects, and he will first diagnose these as diseases of the heart or illnesses of the heart, and then he will prescribe cures. The disease of the heart that we're looking at today is fantasizing, right? Fantasizing. And when we say fantasizing, I think the mind automatically goes to something sexual or something physical or something, but he defines it much more broadly. He says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, the heart's engagement in matters that do not concern it is only forbidden when it pertains to the prohibited. So what are just, when we say fantasizing and we're talking about something we need to rid ourselves of, what are some of the first things that come to mind for you, man?
I think it's natural. The kind of carnal, or the sexual connotation or aspect of that definitely comes to mind. I mean, I try to keep a perspective that doesn't get like overwhelmed. So one of the things I mean by that is a lot of times people talk about their current situation or their time or the age that they're in as though no other time could compare to it. And Allahu Alam, that may be the case, but I'm sure that everybody probably felt similar to this. So, you know,
Sure.
there weren't iPhones and billboards and thousands of channels and access to stuff, but I'm sure others dealt with this aspect, you know, of fantasizing no times before us. But yeah, I think that's a realistic part of it in the age that we live in. The other thing that really stood out to me, it's a beautiful, and you probably be better to kind of tell me the origin of it. I don't know if it's a hadith, but the Prophet says amongst the good of his community, amongst his ummah, is that a person not trouble themselves with things that don't concern them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I always found that very freeing. You know, and really a sign of like iman or taqwa, because it could become engulfing to really get, you know, the mind will take you places that you don't even necessarily find any benefit in going, but you can go there. So I always found that hadith very beneficial, and I try to tell it to people and remind myself of it. But that stood out to me in the chapter. You know,
Alhamdulillah. You know, the hadith you're referring to is the hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ said, "Min husni Islam al-mar'i tarakuhu ma la ya'ni." From the beauty of a person's Islam is leaving things that don't concern them, right? Not being someone who wants to know things about other people, or being someone preoccupied with things that don't bring benefit to them, or things that aren't relevant to one's time and place, right? I remember asking my teacher about this hadith of the Prophet ﷺ, and he said, this kind of fantasizing is like a person who has no interest in buying a car, right? They're not looking at buying. They're not shopping for a car. They're not shopping for a home. They're not trying to get married, but they're on Muzmatch, right? They're looking at the car classifieds. They're on Redfin every day, just looking at prices. He said, this is ma la ya'ni, something that does not concern you. Now, when you are interested in purchasing a home, if you're looking at those listings, of course. When you're interested in getting married, if you're looking at those profiles, of course. If you're interested in buying a car and you're looking over those listings, of course. But if you don't have any interest, why are you looking? You know what I'm saying? And I find like some of us looking at things that are not our business, this has become just a pastime for us, right? In fact, I think to some degree, Instagram, and I don't mean this in an overly inclusive way. I don't mean this in a way that is too broad, right? Because sometimes we really want to see what our, favorite celebrities or people we're close to or associates, we want to see what they're up to, right? Other times, though, I worry that through those media, maybe we're too engaged with things that we shouldn't be engaged with. I mean, what you think?
You know, I can see that. It's interesting. My younger brother Ismail, I remember looking at his phone one time, and you know, you put like apps and folders and groups and stuff, and the name of the group that all his social media was in was 2 hours later. Because like, you know, they just engulf you. You know, I think about the double-edged sword nature of a lot of stuff. You know, like for me, I don't really watch the news. I have cable, you know, so a lot of times Instagram, I'm actually taking a break from it at the moment. But like I remember when the rioting was happening in Chicago. Like for me to see what our people in our community was going through, that was the best. It was like the most
direct,
ground level. You know, I don't know what the news is talking about or who they're gonna show or how they're gonna tell a story, but that I think there is something to people being able to tell their own story, so to speak.
Yeah, no, and see, but where I would differentiate what you're saying from what he's saying, that was something that really concerned you.
Right.
I'm interested in the people.
No.
I want to see what people are doing, how they're responding, how they're protesting, how they're raising their voices in this moment. I'm interested in that.
No.
On the other hand, if I'm just perusing, just looking, looking at so-and-so's vacation, looking at so-and-so's dinner, right? Looking at this person's car, I have to ask myself, what do I expect to result from that?
SubhanAllah. No, that's interesting. You know, it'll occur to me sometimes. Man, it's stuff.
Go, spit it out.
This stuff is deep, man. You know, because you can see yourself looking at something that you may like and starting to feel like you behind because you don't have it. You know, and then may Allah save us from like hasad or evil eye or even hating, whichever one that fall under more suitably. But yeah, no, it's something to that. I think that have to be part of the lessons or the takeaways or the wisdom in it is that ultimately it's going to be no benefit to found, and then even it may be some detriment to be found there. Because you're trying to keep up with what, I mean, but you got the people that they might post a prayer rug, and it's a delicate balance because sometimes encouragement is good, but then other times it's like if you focused on getting the selfie, then are you really got some khushu in the worship that you got going on,
Now, and then the thing too is that a lot of this stuff is so contrived, it's so curated. You don't even know if what you're looking at is real.
Right.
I once came out of a barbershop and I saw some guys taking a picture with my car. No, real talk.
Right.
They were standing there, man. He had some money in his hand. He was leaning on my car like this. I was like, "Hey man, nice car." He was like, "Thanks."
Fake it till you make it.
Yes, I said, "Hey man, that's a nice car." He said, "Thanks." I said, "Where did you get it?" He said, "It ain't mine. We just doing a little photo shoot." I said, "It's actually mine." He said, "SubhanAllah." Well, he didn't say SubhanAllah.
Oh snap!
He was like, "Oh man." But I said, hey, go ahead and finish it, man. Go ahead and finish it. But the thing that was tripped out is that how many people might see that, become jealous of that person for something that the person doesn't even possess.
You getting it? Yeah.
And the idea, and this is something I think is a major misnomer in the culture of the youth. There's so much rapped about, sang about having haters. Like that becomes the definitive sign that you're doing something.
Right.
That you have haters. And I'm thinking, if you knew the harm the evil eye contained, you wouldn't want to court haters. Now, do your thing, seek refuge in Allah. Seek refuge in Allah, ask Allah to protect you, right? But don't court the hate. Don't court the evil eye. Don't court jealousy.
No.
In some instances, it ends up being unavoidable, right? There was nothing that you could do, right? You ask Allah to protect you, right? The Prophet ﷺ, when he was putting on his clothes, he used to say, "A'udhu bi kalimatillahi tammati min sharri ma khalaq." I seek refuge in the perfect words of God from the evil that he has created. Ameen ya Rabbal Alameen. So in some instances, it's unavoidable. But like courting that, especially through artifice. Like
my haters are my motivators.
My haters are my motivators. And the thing, and I'm not speaking about this from a distance. When I was a youth, well, I still am a youth, you know what I'm saying? Hold on, let me correct that statement. But I remember that was something that I took great pride in. The idea that we were making everybody mad. making everybody, we were frustrating everybody, right? We used to come in, we giving these guys brain damage, but they, you know, they get mad because of, you know, our attire or our popularity but as I got older and I want to think I advanced a little bit, you know, in my understanding of the teachings of our faith, I thought, man, that's not something you want to bring on yourself, man. You know what I'm saying?
You know, it's interesting. I think for whatever reason, just the term hating or being a hater is thrown around so loosely to the extent now where, like, if something is not for you, or if it's not suitable to your taste, or you don't enjoy it, or don't even necessarily understand the merit of it, you a hater.
You a hater.
I mean, it was a Talib Kweli. He said,
hater players.
At the thought of being called a hater, imagine that.
Wow.
You know?
Yeah.
Just because I don't get it. It ain't for me.
If I don't like it, I don't like it. It don't mean that I'm hating.
I don't want bad for you, right?
You know what I mean? You know, but you know, the thing about that, I got an alternate perspective on that. I don't think most of us understand the responsibility of having a platform. You see, if I'm sitting in my home and you ask me, what did you think about Coming to America 2?
I didn't see it yet. Don't spoil it.
Oh, it's spoiled. It's terrible. It's
said too late.
Oh, bro. Oh, man. You know, for them to do that to a classic is
all right, man.
All right, but I'm just saying. Now, look, we're sitting in a small group and we have a small viewership, you know, the Ta'leef programming, alhamdulillah. So even me articulating that, right? That's not the same thing as saying that to 100,000 followers, right? I probably would have a little more restraint thinking about maybe the artistic integrity of the people who worked on the project, the hard work of the crew, the staff, etc. And if someone asked me and I was cognizant of my platform, I probably would say, I mean, you'd have to check it out for yourself.
Right.
Something like that. Or, you know, you have to, I would like observe that restraint. But speaking just to you one-to-one, man to man, man, let me tell you about that movie.
Right.
And I don't think that many people have made that shift in their minds. They talk on their social media like they're talking to, a neighbor, a friend.
But I would wonder if, and I even wonder, I'm sure this is true to an extent, but there's an intentional effort to be provocative, to increase the people that's even paying attention to them, you know?
Yeah. And that's the other thing too. Although we didn't intend this conversation just to talk about, social media,
right?
But it creates an incentive to be provocative, to do things that are attention grabbing, right? Because there's real financial benefit to garnering attention and gaining a broad followership, etc.
It is.
You know what I'm saying? So here, Imam Maulud is looking at it from the other side. The people who spend their time engaging in this viewership, right? Watching this, talking about it, discussing it, right? Imam Malik, he asked some of his students one time, he said, is there anybody worse than someone who gives up their akhirah, gives up their hereafter for the sake of the dunya, for the sake of the transitory temporal world? And the students, thought the obvious answer was no.
Right.
So they said, no, there's nobody worse than that.
But there is.
He said, oh, there is somebody worse than that. Somebody who gives up their akhirah for someone else's dunya. He said, at least the person who gives up their akhirah for their dunya, they enjoyed their dunya. But you spend your time talking about their dunya. So you didn't get the enjoyment of dunya, and you didn't get the enjoyment of akhirah either.
You just got the enjoyment of talking about it.
You just got the enjoyment of talking about it. And sometimes when I was a kid, bro, my father spent maybe the first 5 years of my life, my mother and my father were together. And then after that, they separated. But my father used to love watching Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous with Robin Leach, Champagne Dreams, and and I would look at the intense longing in his face when he saw the lifestyles of the rich and famous. One episode in particular, they were interviewing Greg Norman, the Australian golfer. Right? I remember this like it was yesterday. I didn't know anything about golf. I didn't know that my father knew anything about golf. No. My father said, "Oh man, they call him the Great White Shark, man. Look at his house, look at his cars." And so this is, I say all of that to say, this is not a new thing, right? When we see Cribs or the joint with Nate Robinson, I just saw the joint he did with the YouTube. This is not a new thing. In fact, I think this is an ancient thing that people want to talk about people they assume to be materially better off than they are, right? And they often exaggerate. Yo, man, somebody told me he take a different private plane every day. Yeah, I heard that he's never worn the same pair of shoes twice in his life. Somebody told me he has a different chef that comes in and cooks for him every meal. It's never the same chef. And you have to ask.
Hey, you funny.
No, I'm just real talk. So you have to ask yourself, what do people get from that? Why do we? I mean, and look, bro, this is a space where we can be real.
Right.
I've done it recently. Somebody called me, Kanye West is worth $6.6 billion. My response, damn, $6.6 billion. Man, I need to start designing some sneakers, man. For real, man. What are we getting from that? I'm asking introspectively, what are we getting from that? Why are we so concerned about that? Even though the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, when it comes to matters of this world, look to people that have been given less than you. No. It will make you appreciative of what you have. And when it comes to religious standing, knowledge, piety, always look to people that have been given more than you, because it will make you strive for what they have. No. And wallahi, it seems like we do the opposite. When
we figure we're making 3 salats, so the brother making 1 salat.
Even
though we in the red.
I made all 4 of my prayers today.
Right. Everybody else I'm hanging out with.
Man, at least, man, my cousin now. But when it comes to dunya, we look to people that lead what appears to be lifestyles of, extreme, rarefied privilege. And here Imam Maulud is telling us it's not forbidden, right? He didn't say it's not useful, it's not beneficial, but it's not haram, right? If you want to talk about, oh man, I heard that Beyonce gifted Jay-Z a private plane, and he said it's only forbidden when you fantasize about something that is forbidden, right? Which is, subhanAllah, man. I've seen some very practical implications of this particular ruling. Before I was a Muslim, alhamdulillah, I never drank. I was never a drinking man. And I never did drugs because my father was a drug addict. So I was very, you couldn't get me when I was a teenager, you couldn't get me to take aspirin. If I had a headache, somebody said, take some aspirin. I don't do drugs, but you could give it. No. Right? That's growth for me that I'll actually take some aspirin. You know what I'm saying? But something that I really loved was gambling. Oh man. I would come out my house, I could just smell the direction of a game of craps. where are they shooting dice?
Clickety clack.
You know, man. And I would walk up. I had all of my lines. It was crazy. Man, I used to say stuff that even now when I think about it, brings a smile to my face. Like I had to shoot on my knees. I couldn't like crouch down. He said, why you got to shoot on your knees? I got to be in a humble position for God to bring this money to me. You know what I'm saying? I'm talking about gambling. So one day, my wife wanted to play a board game, Monopoly or something like that. Real talk.
Right.
And she like, it's your turn. I'm looking at the dice like, I don't even know if I want to pick those up. I don't even know if I want to pick them up. As soon as I get them in my hand, it's like, oh. And you start fantasizing about something forbidden. That's haram, actually, man. Right? If you pick the dice up and you think, oh boy, man, this, they still clicky clacking. You know what I'm saying? They still clickety clacking.
I still know what I'm doing.
I still know what I'm doing. And then, sure enough, I told my wife, now if we was shooting, right? This is how I would have came out. This is how I would have came out. Then I would start 6-8 over here. Then I'll probably 9-5 you. Then I could, and she looking like, man, this was a whole thing. Maybe we shouldn't play Monopoly anymore. Maybe we shouldn't do this anymore. And I was like,
only sorry where the dice is in a little bubble.
That might be too much. But he says that kind of fantasizing is forbidden, right? That you shouldn't do. Or, I've seen people, man, alhamdulillah, like those little reeds, that ginger beer, but it looks like beer bottles.
No.
It looks like a 6-pack of beer. And I swear to you, bro, I've been at the masjid or with brothers, conversation is flowing, and it's almost like the way he's holding the bottle and leaning on the car and
turn that joint up.
Turning it up. It's almost like we've gone to another place here. These are things we have to be careful about, man. We've gone to another place here. Memories, can be triggered in that way, right? Fantasizing can be triggered in that way, right? You can, then you start telling stories, then Imam Maulud is saying, this is something you want to be careful of, right? If you're fantasizing about something forbidden, that fantasizing is forbidden.
So it's sinful.
It's sinful. Right? If you're fantasizing about something forbidden, right? And you'd be surprised, man. You'd be surprised, man. I've talked to brothers that, in the course of telling stories, because for Muslims, staying up late is the equivalent of drinking together. Something happens to the inhibitions when you stay up late. You stay up with a brother, a couple hours before Fajr.
You're digging deeper for stories.
You're digging deeper. There's a kind of truth serum that just, when I first met you, I didn't like you. I didn't like you, man. It was almost like you thought you was somebody or something, man. We all just saying salam alaikum. You talking salam alaikum. Come on, man. We know you speak Arabic. You didn't have to do that, man. And I'm just like, come on, man. I was just trying to get a salam. Nah, you was showing off. I was like, man, that's cold blood. But I guess, a couple hours before Fajr, it kicks in like that. So brother one day, man, was talking about how exhilarating it used to be to rob banks. He said, man, I used to rob banks. Oh, man. Something about walking out of there with all that money that's not yours.
The twinkle in his eye.
Oh, man. At the time, I didn't know about this, but I would have known. Okay, that's haram. If it's an unfortunate memory, so, I did some things I'm not exactly proud of. But if it's like, oh man, We used to be downtown at the club. Oh my God. We had bottles. We was in VIP. We in there with the celebs, the stars, man. You know, remember that chick that used to be the newscast, Tamron Hall? My man bumped her, man. It was Astaghfirullah. Astaghfirullah. This is not good. This can actually have a deleterious effect on the heart. Yeah. So if you're fantasizing about something that doesn't concern you, but isn't forbidden, that's okay. But if you're fantasizing about something that is forbidden, that fantasizing is forbidden. You know what I'm saying? He continues. Look at the examples he gives. Such as fantasizing about the beautiful qualities of a member of the opposite sex, or dwelling on the faults of Muslims, even in their absence, right? So thinking, having, you know, sexual or erotic thoughts about someone that you are not married to, this is haram. Right? This is, you know, this is something that we should not even entertain. And in a way, it's a means of protecting the dignity and integrity of that person. You don't have any right to think of them in that way because they haven't given you permission to think about them in that way. Subhanallah. It's such a deepening of the idea of consent. No. Right? They have not consented to my thinking about them in that way through marriage. So it's haram for me to even think about them like that. That's respect. No. That's respect. And, you know, we have, you know, a culture of, you know, I mean, you know, if you got it, flaunt it. You know, everybody, you know, men and women. This is not, I don't intend this in a gendered way at all. No. Making themselves objects to be fantasized about, right? To be possessed in that way. You know, man, we have to be very intentional about avoiding some of these pitfalls that exist in our culture.
You know, it makes me think about a quote, and I believe it exists in one of the curriculums that we deal with, with participants. And whenever it comes up, Rafiki likens it to, I think it's a hadith or some edition, but it says, watch your thoughts, they become your speech. Watch your speech, it becomes your actions. Watch your actions, it becomes your habits. Watch your habits, it becomes your character. And watch your character, it becomes your destiny.
SubhanAllah.
So that's deep. From the thoughts to the destiny.
Yeah, no, you know, it's interesting, man. You know, it begins with a thought. It begins with a thought. You know, if one is careful about what you allow to enter the heart, then by extension, of course, you're careful about what is manifest on the limbs, right? What is manifest on the tongue, because you're careful about what you allow to enter the heart. See, what I found, because that discourse is lacking, we don't really have that. I was talking with somebody earlier, and I said that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, "Inna fil jasadi mudgha." In the body, there's a lump of flesh. In salahat, salahat al jasadu kullu. If it's sound, the entire person is sound. Wa in fasadat, fasadat al jasadu kullu. But if it's corrupt, the entire person is corrupt. If you don't have that, you will look at the social phenomena you see as just social phenomena. Whether you're looking at racism, sexism, for you, it's just something that happens socially. But we don't look, what's in the heart of the individual that leads them to such odious behavior? What's animating them? So when you see somebody being concerned about the heart, of course, they're concerned about the tongue They're concerned about the eyes. They're concerned about the limbs. They're concerned about where they go, who they associate with, because they're concerned about the heart. You know, if we guard the heart, we guard everything, man. And when you're talking about fantasizing, especially, you know, forbidden fantasizing, it's like you're guarding your heart. Maybe a thought occurs to you and it's inadvertent. You immediately, a'udhu billah, a'udhu billah, a'udhu billah. Right? But look at the other example he gives. Right? He starts with thinking about people of the opposite gender or whatever. He moves to dwelling on the faults of Muslims. Subhanallah. Like, it is of no benefit for me to think about how stingy somebody else is. Can you imagine that? I'm sitting in my room talking about, that's a stingy dude, man. I mean, his children probably don't even want to call him daddy. That's a stingy dude, man.
Right.
I mean, his kids call him Zayd, Emma. You know, I just get, you know, that's rough, man. But why are you thinking about that?
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of our teachers used to tell us, if you read something in the Quran or you hear something, you know, mentioned by the Prophet ﷺ, and you think to yourself, I wonder if so-and-so knows this one. That's a manifest sign of your misguidance. If you think, man, I should put this in his inbox, you know. Here's a hadith about stinginess. Let me send this to Bro. Here's a hadith about humility. Yeah, let me send this to my wife, man, and see if she, you know, see if she's committed this one to memory. Oh yeah. Here's a hadith about selflessness, man. Let me send this to the Bro, man.
No.
Everything you see, everything you read, everything you encounter, the first person you pass it by is yourself. No. Where am I in relation to this teaching? Where am I in relation to this principle? You know, but no, go ahead, you sound you're about to come in.
You know, it reminds me of something Steve Osama used to say, that for you to see something in another person, it's because you familiar with that thing because it's in you.
It's in you.
And it may not have manifested yet, but it's there. You would say like fires in flint.
It's there. All you have to
just
do is
rub it against something and fire's coming out.
It'll come out. No. You know, certain sayings, I think they're so commonplace and they're so cliche. Mm-hmm. We really don't think about how profound they are. Mm-hmm. For instance, it takes one to know one. Mm-hmm. Right. This is something, you know.
That occurred to me sometimes, man. If I think, man, this dude think he got over one. I said, maybe because I would get over. Because I know what that looked like. Right.
It takes one to know one. You know, people who really don't have a frame of reference or don't have an analog for something they're seeing, they can't place it like that. They might feel like something here is off, but I don't really know what it is. No. But when you have that, now this guy was being condescending to me. How did you know that? Because what? Perhaps you have treated somebody with condescension in a similar manner. No. You know how you begin to use the same phrases in the same ways when you want to be condescending. Inshallah. Alhamdulillah. No, mashallah. I see you've been getting your ilm thing on. Alhamdulillah. Mashallah. You know, you've been putting in a lot of time on your Google joint. Alhamdulillah. Doing your talabul ilm. Mashallah, on your computer. Alhamdulillah. You know how you act when you want to be condescending. This is why you can recognize it. Mm-hmm. You know, so, you know, if we really, and this is, you know, Imam Ghazali states beautifully in his Ihya Ulum ad-Din, if you're really concerned about the state of someone's, spirituality or the state of their conduct, or you would pray for them. And you would do so in private, not in a public. Allah make obey the law better. Help our brother to correct his action. Everybody say Ameen al-Fatiha. That's not. That's not. Even Ghazali said, yani, if it's sincere, it will occur privately, right? And maybe this is my attempt at an addition to something Ghazali wrote. Maybe it will occur privately even before you attempt to admonish that brother. Even before you attempt to admonish that sister, that you would first try to change it with your heart. That you would first say, you know what? Maybe the person doesn't know that this is not good. May Allah give them clarity about that. And then afterward, if there is some intervention that can be made, attempting that intervention. But sitting up and subhanAllah, look at what he's calling us to. He's not even talking about the faults of other Muslims. He's saying what? Just obsessing over them. Just thinking about them is forbidden. Just thinking about how big a liar somebody is. Thinking about how much I dislike the imam who serves at that masjid. Just thinking about it. It's a waste of your time, man.
No. One of the things, alhamdulillah, I'm grateful. It's been just part of what I guess Allah is showing me in perspective is that ability to kind of look inward, because it's easy. They say it's easy outside looking in, like what somebody should do, but in a lot of instances, I try to remind myself, like, you got enough to figure out on your side, before you go to trying to fix what this person need to be doing, how they can spend their time or money differently.
The Prophet ﷺ, said that a person who is so preoccupied with their own faults that they can barely see the faults of other people is blessed. Right? Or another way of thinking about that is people that find it easy to make excuses for other people are blessed. When it's almost like, bro, circumstances dictate situations. And sometimes it's easy to look at someone in their circumstance that you aren't in and make a judgment. Oh, man, dude is a clown, man. Come on, man, look at this guy, But if you were in a similar position, maybe you would be worse.
No telling.
There's no telling. That's why Imam Maulud is saying, there's no benefit in even thinking about it, man. Maybe you would be worse, right? You don't know how you would be if you were, if that person's situation was your situation. You don't know how you'd be. And so just, subhanAllah, man, replace the time you spend obsessing over the faults of others, obsessing over your own faults. And we'll be okay. Right, we'll be okay. La ilaha illallah Muhammadun Rasulullah. So, this is probably a good place to begin the Q&A, inshallah. If we have any questions. The chapter today was on fantasizing and just reviewing, actually only 2 verses. Imam Maulud said, the heart's engagement in matters that do not concern it is only forbidden when it pertains to the prohibited, such as fantasizing about the beautiful qualities of a member of the opposite sex, or dwelling on the faults of Muslims even in their absence. Clearly, this book is dated because it could be people of the same sex.
SubhanAllah. The other thing that comes to mind is you could be so preoccupied and fantasize about something that you are not even appreciating what it is that Allah gave you. You know,
Absolutely.
one of my kind of pet peeve or annoyance, whatever you call it, is just lying, you know, or exaggerating. Because for me, what it kind of shows is you're not satisfied or you haven't accepted the way that it actually is. Whether you like it or agree with it or not, like Allah put it this way. So you lying about it or you know, acting like it's not true or trying to shift the truth, it doesn't change anything, you know. And almost like it's, you know, at my best, I try to keep Allah at the center and keep Allah as the focal point, and that ultimate point of reference. But yeah, appreciate what actually is, even if it's hard to appreciate. And sometimes it is, but it could always be worse.
Sometimes it's frightening to appreciate. You know, man, one of you know, something that Dr. Bilal Ware said, man, that always sticks with me. Is he said, you will notice on most, you know, within most books, treatises, etc., about character, honesty and bravery are always related. You see? And cowardice and lying are always related, because the person that lies is afraid of the truth. You see? The person that does not fear the truth has no reason to lie. Right? I'm not afraid of the truth.
It is what it is.
It is what it is. I can face the truth, so I don't need to lie.
No.
Now, I remember once I was at a car dealership, and I was asking about some of the details about a car. And the guy said something, the Muslim guy, we speaking Arabic. And
you was in your bag. You really thought you was going to get a deal. Huh?
Oh, of course. Muslim guy, we're speaking Arabic. And he said something to me, and I said, man, is that true? He looked at me and said, Ana la akhafu min al-haq. Shaitan yakhafu min al-haq. He said, I'm not afraid of the truth. Shaitan is afraid of the truth. I'll never forget that, man. He, you know, I don't know if he really was an honest guy or that was just, you know, the way he popped back. But I said, man, is that really true?
Yeah.
He looked at me and said, I'm not afraid of the truth. But he intrinsically connected courage with honesty.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of what lie to you. I'm not afraid of the truth. And then he said, Shaitan is afraid of the truth. I was like, okay. You know what I'm saying? I'm not afraid of the truth. Why would I lie?
No.
You know, if you're going to buy the car, you're going to buy it. If you're not, you're not. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna buy it. So I bought a car from him. You know, but that response, I'll always remember that. I'm not afraid of the truth. Shaitan's afraid of the truth.
No.
If it was a lemon or reported as a lemon, I would tell you. This is what it is. You want it or not? This is the best price I can give. What's up?
No.
You know, and so that's, you know, he was displaying great courage in that moment because he was displaying great honesty, you know, in that moment. But mashallah, we'll open. We'll open for questions, comments, ideas, rebuttals, challenges. You can direct all of your questions to Gemali Ibrahim.
Assalamu alaikum. You guys had, like, you know, sort of mentioned sort of earlier that seeing the faults in others is just about, you know, familiarity, sort of the faults within yourself. Sort of two questions actually. So do you think that's related to sort of seeing faults in others to make yourself like feel sort of like better in terms of rooted in low like self-esteem? And then second like question is like, it's these things have become such a habit sort of nowadays, is to go straight to the faults or to see the like negatives in others. So what are some like practical, like day-to-day things, sort of besides like dhikr, that we can do to really like focus the sort of like it's like attention in the faults within ourselves?
You want to speak to it?
Listen, for me, I think the first question you were saying, I guess, the purpose or the root of seeing fault in another person related to it. You know, I'm able to appreciate it as something that kind of reminds of humility. You know, I'm familiar with this concept and this idea, so it occurs to me a lot. You know, when I'm dealing with when I see like a fault or something of that nature, and I may not even have the same fault, but I'm able to, you know, I know me well enough to know like I got my own struggles that I'm dealing with. Another person's struggle, I may not have the same one. So to answer that question, I think for me, it is, and you know, it serves a purpose as being something that reminds of humility. I think when it's not that, then I feel like it kind of like toes a tight line between like hypocrisy, you know what I'm saying? Because it's only so much. I mean, I think about, I don't know if it's a hadith or a story about a man who he had his own faults and he didn't want to be a hypocrite, so he didn't go to correct his children or go to correct others. And he was told like, well, you have to speak up or else you're just going, you know, you're okay with it. But he didn't want to fall into hypocrisy of correcting somebody or something when he had his own issues. And I think the other, what was the second part? I was
Practical things that you can do.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting. A close friend of both of ours, Ali Kanoya, he used to be a salesman. In a lot of ways, he is still a salesman. But it was a tactic.
You know, somebody's a good brother if you say their name and it brings enjoyment.
That's right. I think either yesterday or today was his birthday. I got to call him. Inshallah, bless him.
Today or yesterday?
One of the two.
Okay, I call him too. I can always get no trouble.
Yeah. Alhamdulillah. But he was a salesman. He said one of the things he learned was this whole idea of build, break, build.
Yes.
So if you have to bring something to someone that they may not want to hear, lead with a positive, and then go into the area of correction, and then leave off with a positive, so that they're able to receive it. I think about the story of Musa alayhi salam and Fir'aun, and all the atrocities that you know, Fir'aun committed, that Allah still told Musa alayhi salam to speak to him gently that he might be corrected. And I think in that it's a lot of wisdom. You know, it's interesting. I was speaking with a colleague that I manage, and it was some real like areas of improvement and kind of issues that I had to address, and I made sure to speak to a positive thing, you know, and he really appreciated that. And you know, the situation went well, but when I look back at it, I'm really glad that I put the positive thing in there. Like he really appreciated that and was able to receive the message, and you know, I'm like, it went smooth. So that's it. I think use it as a point of humility. Remind yourself that one, you don't have all the answers. Two, you got your own struggles, you know. And something my father used to always tell us is that nobody can tell you what's best for you, you know. They may be able to add their perspective or get their advice, but ultimately you are the one that has to be an expert in your life.
You know, I think that every time you say declaratively to somebody, you're also saying, I'm not. You know, when I say, man, you are I'm also saying, I'm not a. Man, you're so shallow. I guess that means I'm deep. I mean,
I think very deeply.
What'd you say?
I think very deeply.
I think very deeply. What you know about that? But you know, you know, if I say you're such a liar, I guess that means I'm truthful. right? And so sometimes one of the things that helps me to refrain from, making those kinds of judgments and accusations is I don't want to engage in that kind of self-congratulation. What am I saying about who am I? What am I saying about myself? If I say you're this, am I saying that what? I have no traces of that quality in me? And if I do have traces of that quality in me, and I most certainly do, right? I would hope that people would what? Be gentle with me, offer me correction in a way that, they at least aimed at my receptivity. They were hoping that they weren't trying to put me down, but rather lift me up. Right. So I try to, think about that.
And then it was about the message, not just you feeling good that you
told them.
Right.
Right. Sometimes
if you really want them to receive it,
mm-hmm.
put some energy into that part.
Exactly. It's kind of like, right? It's like, thinking, it's like ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wa maw'idatil hasana. Call to the way of your Lord with wisdom, right? And good exhortation, good preaching, right? So that wisdom is, thinking about the right time, thinking about the right context, thinking about the right words. Something like, like Ko Ali said, bill break bill, thinking, how can I express this to you in a way that there's no judgment, right? This is only something I intend because I want to see you be the best version of you that you can be. That's it. No. And perhaps the most important thing is after you've given the nasiha, after you've given the advice, just let it go. Don't sit like some of us, we sit and it's clear we're waiting to see if they're going to say thank you or you've changed my life, or it's like, I just told you something about Islam. Aren't you going to say I'm a great guy or thanks, Ubayd, or something like that? Or, just give the advice and just let it go. Man. Just let it go. I find that people are humbled by that. Like, man, he really, this was really in my interest. This was not about conquest. Like one of the things, and this is like getting like personal, one of the things that I know I need to work on is I'm an argumentative person. I like to argue. It's the way that I learn. And I don't mean I like to argue violently or aggressively. I like a good spirited debate. I learn, that Socratic process of, you give the best of what you have, I'll give the best of what I have. What I have is definitely better. Don't worry about that. But you give the best of what you have, and the truth will come out in the course of that exchange, right? Something that's very hard for me is that when I get into that mode, it's really just about like staving off conquest. Like, I just don't want to let you win. And then I start exaggerating. I start saying things now just to make a point. No. Because at some point it ceased to be a conversation, and it started to be kind of a competition. Me versus you, not both of us trying to get to what's true. No. Imam Shafi'i, and this is a deep statement. I've shared this statement with non-Muslims, and they say, "Oh, that's deep." He said, "I've never disputed with anybody except that my prayer was that the truth would be made manifest on their tongue, and I would have the honor of submitting to it." But I'm hoping that that person says the truth, and I can say, "No, you're right." That's what I want to happen. Now, there's not a report of Shafi'i losing many arguments, but we'll trust that was his hope. That was, it's like, Imam Suyuti, one of my favorite, personalities in classical Islam. He was a fighter for intellectual independence and freedom. So he would say that this whole idea about the imams of the past, I am in complete, decision-making, unrestrained, unrestricted scholar of the law, just like Imam Shafi'i. There's no difference between his scholarship and mine. People said, but you follow all the Shafi'i's positions. He said, no, it's just that I really believe that everything he said was right. You know what I'm saying?
You just happened to get it right. That's why I would have took it. I was going there too.
I actually just believed that everything he said was right.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But I'm completely independent in my thinking. You know what I'm saying? MashaAllah. You gotta show some Shafi'i some love. You know what I'm saying? Alhamdulillah.
Bismillah. So it says, hi, Saddam. Is the concept of manifesting an affirmation, is that a type of fantasizing? Like it hasn't happened yet, but you keep affirming.
Subhanallah. If it's dua, if you're making dua, that's good. Whenever people ask about this practice of affirmation, and I've received a lot of questions about it. I'm always find myself asking follow-up questions. So if it's like making dua with certainty, then this is the only way you're supposed to make dua, right? It's actually mentioned in the etiquettes of praying to Allah that you pray with certainty. You don't say like, Allah bless me to get married if you want to. Save me and
But you can say like if there's good in it.
If it's good in it, but not like if right, not like if you can do it. Allah, if you can save my life, save it. No, you make dua with certainty, right? And qidni, save me, right? Even the way, this is kind of a subtlety of the Arabic language. That when I first learned this, I was like, oh, that's really cool. The fi'l amr, right? The command form of a verb can be used with many different kinds of people. But depending on how you relate to the person you command, this is how the statement is understood. So if you use a command form of a verb and you're talking to someone that is your subordinate, it's a command. Like if you say to one of your children, get in the house. Get in the house. It's understood to be a command. If you say it to someone who's considered to be your equal, you use a command form, it's considered to be a request. So if I say to someone who is my equal, so if I say to my wife, get in the house, it's like, get in the house, but it's a. If you say it to someone who is your superior, it's an appeal, it's iltimas, it's dua. But you're still using the command form, but it's an appeal. Help me. It's a command.
No.
Help me. But so when we make dua to Allah, we use the command form. Help me, bless me, aid me, support me, right? But it's understood that we're talking to Allah. So we're not commanding Allah like we would command one of our children. We're commanding Allah, we're requesting from Allah. But we're still using the fi'l amr. We're still using the command form of the verb. So if by affirmation, the person means like, I'm mentioning this like it has happened because I believe with certainty. If there's good in it, it will happen, right? That's what we do in istikhara, right? وَقَدِرْهُ لِي وَبَارِكْ لِي فِي وَيَسِرْهُ لِي. All of these commands in Arabic. Decree it for me. Make it easy for me. Bless me with it. But if it's sharrun li fi dini wa ma'ashi wa aqibati amri, it's bad for me in my deen and my livelihood and the way my life ends, wasrifhu anni, wasrifni an. Take it away from me. Take me away from it. All of this is a kind of affirmation, right? Look. But if they mean kind of this idea of fantasy being, let's just go, we have no real plan to purchase a house. I've seen people do this in the name of affirmation, but let's just go to the open house. Ask questions, take a brochure, pretend as though we're prospect buyers, right? And ask really probing questions. So how many square feet exactly? So when did you replace these appliances? Oh, wow, you're really interested in buying this house? No. just affirming that one day I will have a house. That could
Get out. Get out.
Get out of here. That could be what he's talking about as kind of a, a negative, not forbidden though, because buying a house is not forbidden, but a negative kind of fantasizing. You're not currently shopping for a house, right? But this is what I've seen many people do in the name of affirming. Go to the dealership, sit in the car, ask questions. Are you planning to buy a car? No. Just some affirmation that one day I will own one though. Right? It's not haram. It's not haram. But Imam Maulud might suggest that this is not the wisest use of your time. Right?
Assalamu alaikum. Does anyone have any questions in the space?
It's like me walking past the White House saying, one day I'll occupy the Oval. Are you preparing for a career in public life? No, not really. So why?
Assalamu alaikum. Jazakallah khair. Beautiful nuggets and wonderful takeaways. Alhamdulillah. The question has come up quite often about this notion of thoughts, right? Like you mentioned, are thoughts forbidden, and is there sin in thoughts? And the understanding that I've had is that our reckoning or accountability is around what we say and what we do. There's a hadith that I don't want to mistake it or be inaccurate, but the Prophet ﷺ, alluded and spoke to the notion that when my ummah has thoughts, Allah will forgive them as long as they don't say it, doesn't come to their tongue, and as long as they don't act upon it, right? And so, because in this sea of just journeying through the dunya, shaitan will jump on your brain and your thoughts constantly. You're looking for that rope to make sure, to your point, brother, where you want to make sure those thoughts don't become words and they don't become actions. But within the spirit of the mercy of God, in terms of understanding that, look, thoughts will come and go, and some of them might not all be good. From that perspective, what are your thoughts on that in terms of insight?
No, I want to hear the answer.
Here, there's some linguistic subtlety. Something haram is, we mean fi'lun mu'aqab alayh, something for which the doer will be punished in lam yatub, if they don't repent. Something forbidden, he means mamnu'a, like something you don't want to do, something you shouldn't do. But if you have a thought, you don't act on it, you won't be punished for that. It's not something for which you will be held accountable. But he's saying mamnu'a, something it's forbidden, like you shouldn't do it. Like this is something you have no business thinking about that woman in that way, right? Because it will lead you perhaps to inappropriate action. You have no business thinking of that man in that way. You have no business thinking of the faults of that person in that way, because this will lead you to backbiting. So I think he intends it in a kind of what they call sadd al-dhara'i', like blocking the pretext. Like if you're thinking about this, the thought itself might not be haram, but the thought might lead to an action that is haram. So the thought becomes forbidden. Don't even think about it. Because if you think about it, you act on it. You see? But it's not haram, like something for which you will be punished. Right?
Talking about fantasizing.
Fantasizing. Right? It's not something for which you'll be punished, but it's something that you should regard as like, don't do it. Like, don't do that. See what I'm saying?
Bismillah. Fantasizing seems related to the importance of relationships and how will they help us appreciate our current circumstances or cause us to want to avoid those relationships. What advice would you have?
Can you pull the mic away? Because it's kind of hard for me to hear.
Okay, I'm sorry.
I'll be so close.
Fantasizing seems related to the importance of relationships and how will they help us appreciate our current circumstances or causes us to want to avoid those relationships. What advice would you have for someone who is struggling with finding joy with some toxic people and find themselves interested / fantasizing about other circumstances? Is this wrong?
What you think?
Advice that you would give to a person that is dealing with toxic people. And what was the other part?
and find themselves interested / fantasizing about other circumstances.
SubhanAllah. I mean, just listen to the second part. The things that comes to mind is if it's nothing sinful, right, that you're fantasizing about, then it may not be blameworthy or negative. I think for me, and at this point was inshallah, this can find some kind of benefit for the asker. But it was a point I was considering earlier when you were talking. Just the importance of communal life. Because, you know, I feel like it's part of the trick of this society to just have everybody individualistically thinking. You know, the whole idea that you get it on your own and, you know, pull your bootstraps up and all that stuff. But that's not the reality. Like people who are really quote unquote successful, it doesn't happen on their own, you know. So I feel like it's like a myth that they sell to marginalized peoples who they really don't want to have success. Like you keep trying to do it this way. Like that's not how it happened for any of us. And we know it ain't gonna happen like, or it's very slim to happen like that for you. So I think for me, in regards to, you know, dealing with toxic people, I think you have a good intention, but if you have to find different people to be around, I think that's serious, just because it does rub off and it has an effect. You know, the whole thing about aspiring to people that have or maybe, you know, more knowledge of the deen, or maybe seemingly closer to Allah when you look at your religious condition. The benefit in that is like you have to be connected to people. You know, it's like the standard that's held by the people close to you is what you kind of accept and look up to. And if that's a particularly low standard, then you succumb to that and you just start falling off. You may not recognize it. So I don't know. Like I hope that, you know, Allah bless the person asking the question and give them some clarity. But I think for me, what comes to mind is just the importance of having real relationships, having real community, not being isolated, and you know, having the gumption or the courage to really look at relationships and the role that they play and how they affect you, and not what you think it is, but what it actually is. You know, yeah. I mean, because the people that's next to you, what you're hearing, what you're talking about, what you're thinking, it all has an effect. You know.
I was in California once, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, and I was listening to Imam Fode Drame, and he was talking about Surah Al-Layl. And he mentioned that when Allah Ta'ala says, Bakhila wastaghna, Bakhila wastaghna. Bakhila means to be stingy. Wastaghna, to deem yourself self-sufficient. He said, you see, these two qualities always go together. And I had recited this verse of the Quran so many times, and I never thought about the relationship between stinginess and the belief in one's self-sufficiency. But when I was like, the Quran is from Allah. Only a person that thinks, what, I made it myself, nobody helped me, would feel justified in being stingy to other people. Nobody helped me. Why do you want me to help you? Bakhila wastaghna. You see, only a person that feels like I got it on my own. You want me to help you? So a belief in self-sufficiency justifies stinginess. You see, that's its real function. What you want me to give you something? Nobody gave me anything. It's like, your old man is rich. Oh, you talking? Yeah, that's my daddy, though, man. I'm talking about nobody else gave me anything. Like, come on, man. What are we talking about here, man? Right? And something else. When it comes to people that we think are toxic, it really depends on where we are in our development. You know, if we feel that we will be impacted by their toxicity, then we need some distance, right? On the other hand, if we think we can help to detoxify them, then we should, man. I was reading a hadith in the Shama'il of Imam al-Tirmidhi yesterday. I was teaching the Shama'il, and Amr ibn al-As narrated a hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ was said to, كان رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم يقبل على أشر الناس بوجهه وبحديثه. That the people that people thought of as the worst of people, the Prophet would extend toward them with his gaze and his conversation. يتألفهم بذلك, seeking to soften them with that. So people that were deemed toxic, the Prophet was very intentional in smiling at them, checking in with them, talking to them in order to soften them with that. Now, not everybody is at that level. Some of us are like, yo, if I get around, it's gonna impact me. But the reason I mention that is that even those people are not people we throw away. Somebody has to have the spiritual standing that, no, those people, I talk to them. I invite them to pray with me. I try to give him a good word when I see him. Hey, brother, man, how you been, man? Yeah, he holding the beer behind his back, man. Thing been cool, man. Ustaz Ubayd, man. You know what I'm saying? You pop up in the most unexpected places. You know what I'm saying? Well, you never know when you might see me, yeah.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? But I'm gonna get out of here, man. Give my best to your family. Whenever you're ready, give me a call, man. We go to the next year, get a bite to eat. Let me know. Who knows? Now, if I had said, "Yo, they gonna want the toxic brothers, man," I'm just gonna keep my distance. Now, if I was say a recovering alcoholic, that might be best for me. I'm just gonna keep my distance, man. I don't even want to get close to something like that. But even those people need people who can engage them. You know what I'm saying? We're not a community that throws anybody away.
The thing, I feel compelled to jump in. For me, at this point, been coming a lot recently, but I think we can never lose sight what you may represent for another person. When I say that, I'm specifically thinking about like good or light or righteousness, So some of the work I do is with, it's with a lot of people that maybe haven't taken Shahada, some who have, but a lot of people coming home from prison and younger people who are trying to just make better decisions and, find themselves in better circumstances. And I remember this was years ago, but one of the young men called me and I didn't necessarily have an opportunity to connect him to, but we had a real relationship. So maybe he was just checking in. And it was once I saw his call, and I don't know if time was short or just my own mood didn't feel like talking to him, but I had to consider his calling me may be him trying to do something better. Like you may not have a lot of outlets or readily be able to identify or connect to trying to do better in life or connect to something better. So I said, should that be ignored because I don't feel like answering this phone call? Like you can never lose sight of what you may represent and really what we're supposed to represent as, followers of the Prophet, so it's on and enjoining right and forbidding wrong. But so I appreciate you adding that to it, because to the sister's question, these people that are toxic, I mean, one of the brothers in the program had a birthday party some years ago, and I went. I was gonna take my son because it's supposed to be at the bowling alley, and then it wasn't. It was at somebody's house.
At some point, somebody hopped out of a pastry.
But no, I didn't take Issa, but it was a lot of smoking and drinking, and I didn't indulge in any of it.
I'd have been in situations like that. I'm good.
I mean, but that's how it be sometimes, but it meant a lot for him that I came, and he ended up taking Shahada, and whatever, people still got their struggles, but we're supposed to represent something better.
Yeah.
And supposed to represent righteousness. And we have our own struggles, and may Allah turn our hearts towards him and purify all the impurities that we have. But you're supposed to represent that and consider the fact that you probably already do and that you may do for some people, and you have to carry it like that.
Yeah,
you know, and even essentially you think about like the attraction to the opposite gender, it's like you may be the only maybe Muslim or whatever it is person that this woman may come across. Should that be subject to your finding her attractive? Like, should she not get no access to learn about the deen or learn about something good because you don't have enough self-control? Like, is it really about you? You know?
Yeah, no, that's a good point, man. I was chuckling because I've been in a situation where they say, "Yo, come through," and you come in, they like, "Yeah, man, this my spiritual teacher right here, man. It's nothing but loud in the air. Everybody got drinks. Spiritual teacher, take a picture with us." Hey, come on, baby. I said, "No, man." And I just want to say, man, shout out to bro now. It's his birthday, man. He's a good guy, man. I'm gonna get out of here. But I guess that'd be a good place for us to close out, inshallah. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Al-Asr. إن الإنسان لفي خسر إلا الذين آمنوا وعملوا الصالحات وتواصوا بالحق وتواصوا بالصبر. آمين يا رب العالمين.